Antarctica is melting, Greenland is melting, ocean sea levels are rising, air temperatures are increasing, and the amount of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere reaches record high every single year. This is the problem of climate change. Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today's topic is a bit more different, a bit more serious. I just want to start off with saying I'm not a scientist, but I'll do my best to explain why Antarctica melting is perhaps the deadliest fate waiting in our nearby future. Now this is a horror channel, and if you ask me, climate change is our biggest horror story that needs more attention. Now, Antarctica melting is not a new subject matter. It has been melting every single year since 2002, and the rates of ice melting is only accelerating over time. NASA has said that the rate of melted ice in Antarctica is 150 billion tons per year. For perspective, that's like throwing 100 million cars that weigh 1.5 tons each into the ocean. And 100 million cars is 14% of all vehicles in the world, which is estimated with 1.4 billion. Now those are statistics that I made up, so if the math isn't right, then blame me. It's not my strong suit, but I think that helps to put it into perspective how much ice that actually is. Now this is disastrous news, since the water from the melting ice accumulates for a third of global sea level rises since 1993. This very problem is what makes coastal regions at highest risk, estimated to be submerged completely underwater in the next few decades. As well as that, air temperatures that are warming up cause surface ice to melt, causing influx of meltwater into the ocean. Imagine it like this. An ice cube in a cup of water. Sure, the ice cube will melt faster in warmer waters, but it melts significantly faster if the water is stirred, because that creates extra heat and energy that expands the surface area that causes it to melt away quicker. Higher air temperatures is essentially stirring that ice cube in a cup, making the melting of glaciers and ice much faster. This is the lead study of Donald Slater, a scientist at the University of Edinburgh. All ocean basins have been experiencing significant warming since 1998, with more heat being transferred deeper into the ocean since 1990. To date, the oceans contain about 90% of the heat from human-induced global warming, and the year 2020 was the warmest ever measured for the global ocean. This process is a massive issue in Greenland, specifically South Greenland, where glaciers are melting the fastest. Now this is no surprise to scientists, as South Greenland is closer to the warm Atlantic Ocean, so in turn, the model suggests warm waters play the dominant part in melting ice. The main issue is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now because of these emissions, it's been causing the atmosphere to warm up over the last few decades, and that's because of humans. Researchers found if the atmosphere hadn't warmed up in the extent it has over the last few decades, then the retreat of Greenland's glaciers as a whole would have been reduced as much as a third. And in northwestern Greenland, where the water is cooler, it could have been saved to as much as a half. So why are environmentalists freaking out? Well, rising sea levels is the biggest consequence, causing increased coastal erosion, which is a permanent loss of land due to action of waves, currents, tides, and many other impacts of storms that are being increased globally. This makes certain regions more dangerous and deadly than ever known before in history, and that will continue to cause death and damage to homes and wildlife. We're already seeing intense flooding over the globe, so increased water levels is frightening, as floods will only intensify in the future. As oceans warm, weather patterns will continue to be disrupted, and storms like hurricanes and typhoons will be more frequent and severe. With these factors combined with rising sea levels, there will be a lot of hurdles to overcome. Damage, death, and injuries are inevitable in the future, and we simply have to deal with it. We can't control the weather after all. Wildlife is also affected by melting sea ice and glaciers. For many animals, this ice is part of their homes. Walruses, polar bears, and foxes, and many other animals depend on sea and ice to survive. Without it, they have to learn how to adapt or they'll die. The melting of sea is actually the biggest threat to polar bears today. Decreasing emissions is vital to ensuring the safety of these animals and for millions of people. The negative effects of melting ice in Antarctica are far-reaching and hard to ignore. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is the biggest cause of greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases primarily come from us humans burning fossil fuels to heat our homes, deforestation, natural forest fires due to warmer weather, and farming livestock, adding enormous amounts on top of those that are already naturally in the atmosphere. Greenhouse gases are also caused by natural occurrences like volcanic eruptions, but that's a completely different thing. And with these emissions building up, it's contributing to our oceans being more acidic, as much as 30% more, with a yearly estimate of 30 billion tons of carbon dioxide produced, with over 80% of that being from human nature. Planting trees helps put more oxygen into the atmosphere, thus reducing carbon dioxide. However, our oceans emit most of Earth's oxygen, so the effect of tree planting is nowhere near as significant or will help reverse climate change. We've also never had a year to date where our greenhouse gas emissions and our carbon dioxide has been lower than a previous year. It's only going up every single year, and if you look at the graph, it looks like a very minuscule jump, but it really adds up. And the fact that it's increasing shows that we're not doing enough to tackle the greenhouse gas effect or climate change. Now, I think it's fair to say most of the blame goes to huge corporations, governments, and global leaders who continue these industries with very little action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Evidently, we are unsuccessful in reducing emissions of any given year so far, which means more has to be done. Projects like this will cost enormous amounts of money, time, and research, and yet we have no guarantee to be saved. However, it could result in us having more time for humanity and the animals and the oceans that inhabit Earth with us. And it won't be a priority for some when their economies are dependent on producing gas and other fossil fuel industries to their countries. Now, of course, it is the blame of everybody on this planet why we're having these issues, but huge corporations and governments control the projects that go on in Earth. So the question is, are we going to start changing the way society runs and focus on climate change, or are we going to keep allowing global emissions to increase every single year? Because so far at the moment, we're not really doing that much. But of course, I will let you guys have your say in the comments. What do you think of this problem? Are we worried for the future? Do we think that Earth is going to end sooner than possible? But yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.